Hey guys, I want to continue my 2-year follow-up reviews of HEMA gear that I've owned and sparred with the Regenyei Standard Feder. The pronunciation of Regenyei and Feder eludes me, so I'm just going to use those two pronunciations and go from there. This has basically been my standard Feder for the entire time I've practiced HEMA. It has held up excellently. It's just been a durable, reliable workhorse of a sword that I have thoroughly enjoyed. I've had very little issues with this sword's upkeep, and it is almost in the same state as when I bought it 2 or 3 years ago. I'd have to look at the review that I initially posted to see when exactly that was. For more details on this, you can watch that original video that I posted. I'll link it below. But basically, it is a very standard Feder with the normal pommel, his standard crossguard, the box schild, not the crown, just all very straightforward. Standard length, standard weight, standard everything. I have seen a number of these swords fail, of Regenyei's Feders fail, both his tournament, his standard, lots of different ones fail in different ways. I've seen one that broke here at the, here right at the crossguard where these meet. I've seen a lot of tips, rolled tips breaking, and I noticed that where they tend to break is right here in the center where, you know, if you're doing a thrust, a lot of that force is going to go in and snap it right there. I actually had a Regenyei tip cut me pretty well because I was sparring with a friend. Their tip broke in exactly the way I'm describing, left a jagged, sharp edge, which then went into and through the glove I was using to give me that scar you see right there at the base of my thumb. I was basically holding the sword like this, and as you'll see, my hand is right up front here. Their sword came along mine and right in through the glove. So broken tips that are rolled have been sort of a repeated occurrence that we've seen. A lot of manufacturers are going away from rolled tips and going towards thickened or spatulated tips, where they take the bar stock that they're cutting the sword out of, remove all of the thickness for the actual blade, but then leave all the material on the tip, so you have a nice, thick, solid tip that is safe in the thrust, but will not break like a rolled tip tends to. This one, as you can see, has stayed intact, and to keep that going, I'm basically going to wrap this in tape, then put one of these guys over it. This is a rubber stopper, and inside the rubber stopper is a metal washer, basically. And again, what I'll basically do is put tape around this, pop this over the tip, and then put more tape around that. That gives it 3 layers that the tip would have to go through if it broke. And if it broke, hopefully the tape ripping at some point would be an indicator of that. And hopefully this will contain any sharpness with that metal washer. The only wear and tear that the sword has really taken is this little bit in the grip. So you'll notice that some of the thread has kind of come loose here. And this happens with cord wrap grips over time. This one was, painted over with some sort of lacquer to keep all the cord nicely, glued in place and not fraying like that. But over time and with lots of use, especially because I've handed this Feder to students and friends who didn't have a sword at that moment and were wearing steel gauntlets. Steel gauntlets have metal edges that tend to tear up Feders a little bit quicker. I don't own steel gauntlets, so it hasn't got that much use, but it has seen, I'm guessing that these are actually from a steel gauntlet, just grabbing it and sort of roughing up the cord a little bit. This is not a major issue. I can just treat this with like a clear polyurethane coat, something like that. Even clear spray paint, something like that will basically glue this all back into place, no problem. In terms of rust and corrosion, this thing has gotten rusty a few times, but it is very easy to clean. Early on when I owned this, it actually took a ton of rust because my spouse's cat peed on it. A cat peed on my sword, and you should have seen the corrosion. It was amazing. It was actually in a sword bag. The cat peed on that, and when I took it out, I had no idea this happened. Took the sword out of the sword bag, and it looked like somebody had just removed the sword from an ancient tomb. It was heavily corroded in parts, and I thought it was a loss. I thought was gonna have to throw it away. I cleaned it. I took abrasive pad to it. I oiled it, cleaned it right up, and it's fine. I mean, it took no structural damage. It has remained sparring and remained in active service. No issues from that. The edges are very nicely rolled, as you can see, and while you see they have taken a beating, it doesn't really pit or turn into sharp edges very often. When I spar against someone using a thinner blade, it'll sometimes put marks in it, but they're very easy to file out. I have not had to deal with lots of burrs or sharp edges on this feeder blade. It's really nice. The most significant issue that this has faced is a slight bend starting right about here. And let me see if it's probably pretty hard to see, but there's a slight bend over in this direction that this took basically when I just landed a really nice thrust, but I wasn't thrusting this way, I was thrusting this way, so it bent down like that, took a mild set, and that set I tried to just manually correct, but wasn't really able to, and that actually, yeah, right up against the curtain there, you can kind of see that bend a little bit more. It is very slight. It does not affect the performance of the sword so far. I don't see any cracking or signs of structural a breach in structural integrity, any sort of failure. Oops, excuse me. Any failure in the structural integrity, anything like that. If I hold it out straight, I'm wondering if you can see the bend a little bit more. No, it's actually okay. You can kind of see it. It's really not a ton off center. So when I'm sparring and doing stuff, I'm able to do everything just as I normally would, and that tiny little bend doesn't really affect things much. My main concern there is that eventually it will break right there, but that's just something I need to keep an eye on, and if it does break, I will probably buy another one of this exact feeder. I mean, it's held up amazingly over the past 2 to 3 years. I've known lots of people that have owned Regenyei feeders who have also had theirs last a really long time through lots of abuse. Yes, I have seen some break, but I think those are flukes, and any sword maker will tell you sometimes your heat treatment isn't perfect. Sometimes you have a flaw in production, just in, one sword out of 100 has a flaw. That one goes out, someone gets it, it breaks. Regenyei has an excellent return policy, especially if you're going through HEMA supplies. Scott Brown with HEMA supplies. If you've had your sword for less than a year, you'll get a new one as fast as possible. He's very good about that. The friend I was talking about who broke the tip of their sword on they broke their tip of the sword before they gave me that thrust to the thumb. They got their replacement sword in time for a tournament that they were on their way to, basically. That they were training up for when we had that match that cut my thumb. So they were able to get a new sword in time for the tournament they were going to. No problems there. That about sums it up for this sword. I'm incredibly impressed with it. It has lasted extremely well over the past 2 to 3 years. I'm a big fan of Regenyei's work. I'm a fan of Scott Brown with HEMA Supplies, excellent customer service. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. Again, if you do have an issue, if you've had it for less than a year, you can easily get it replaced. I can't say enough good things about Regenyei's fetters or about his work. They're repeatably reliable, dependable. His production times are good. His actual production is good. I mean, this is a solid fetter for a beginner, for a veteran HEMA practitioner. This is just an excellent sword that if you take care of it, will last you 2 to 3 years, probably more than that. Yeah. So there you have it. Just a quick 2 to 3 year update on this Regenyei Standard Feeder. Thanks a ton for watching, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks again for watching. Please hit subscribe and check out some of these other videos.